Suddenly, my mother-in-law stood up and announced loudly, "A wife with only a high school education and as a single parent isn't good enough for my son. I'm going to have him marry someone well-bred, so get out." I was taken aback for a moment, but then smiled slightly. "All right then," I said as I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared from a drawer. "By the way, since I've been paying the mortgage, there's no money for property division. Since this house is in my name, there's nothing I need to give you." "Is that so?" she replied. "Well, I don't really care." I left with just the essentials. The next day, my father called Lucas. When Lucas answered wearily, my father cheerfully said, "Thanks, now my daughter can take over the company." "Huh? What?" "My name is Amelia Jones. I'm 32 years old, married for 6 years, and live with my husband and mother-in-law. I met Lucas 9 years ago at a bar where I was working part-time. He was a regular, always friendly with the manager, and often chatted with me. Lucas, 3 years older than me, worked at a company near the bar. He looked sharp in his suit, and I thought he was very handsome, especially when he loosened his tie as soon as he sat down. "I'm so tired," he said. "I must have had a tough day at work." As soon as Lucas sat at the counter, he slumped forward. "How was today?" I asked. "I endured the whole day looking forward to stopping by here on my way home." "You love beer, don't you? I'll get you a cold one right away." No. What I'm looking forward to isn't the beer, it's you." "Amelia?" "Huh?" "The other day when you had a day off," he was complaining. "Why is she off?" "Hey, don't tell her that. She'll hate me." "No, I wouldn't hate you," I said, my feelings obvious as I blushed. "Really? Can I hope for something then?" Lucas sat up quickly, and his words made me blush even more. "Lucas, if you're teasing me." "No, I'm serious." That's how we started dating, and after 3 years, we got married. We rented a 2-bedroom condo and started living together. But in our 2nd year of marriage, Lucas's father passed away due to illness. The death of my kind father-in-law was a big shock to our family, especially to his wife. My mother-in-law was deeply saddened, and with this passing, became even more attached to Lucas, her only child. "Hey, Lucas, we have the life insurance money your father left us, so let's take this opportunity to rebuild the house into a 2-family home and live together. I'll pay the down payment for you." Lucas tilted his head in thought and glanced at me. "What do you think, Amelia?" "Oh, I'm not asking Amelia. I'm talking to you, Lucas." "But Amelia will be living with us too." "Amelia, do you have any objections to living with me?" "No, not really." It would be a lie to say I had no objections, but when I decided to marry Lucas, an only child, I knew I would have to live with his mother someday. I was prepared for this, but I never imagined it would happen so soon. "But Mom, can you and Amelia get along?" "That's right. That was our biggest concern about living together. I knew she disliked me. Currently, we live separately, and she only visited when Lucas was home. Because we hardly spent time alone together, it wasn't an exaggeration to say there hadn't been any major conflicts." "Oh well, what do you mean?" "We're getting along fine, aren't we, Amelia?" I nodded vaguely, tilting my head slightly. From the way I nodded, no one would think we were getting along well. "Okay, here are the 2 conditions for living together. You'll pay the down payment, and you'll get along with Amelia." My mother-in-law's face briefly showed irritation at Lucas, who held up 2 fingers as he spoke. But she probably realized it would be a problem if she argued and couldn't live with us, so she forced a smile. Of course, those conditions are fine. Thus, she paid the down payment to rebuild the house, and Lucas would handle the mortgage. Although the house was still in my mother-in-law's name, it would eventually be passed to Lucas, so there were no worries about money. Living with my mother-in-law was depressing, but after that, she started being kind to me. Amelia, what do you think the kitchen should look like since we'll both be using it? Let's decide together. We had a lot of fun planning the layout of the new house together. Looking back, this was probably the happiest time in my married life. But once the house was completed and we started living together, her attitude gradually changed. Oh my, what's for dinner tonight? It's all meat dishes. Are you trying to make things hard for me with my weak teeth? No, it's not like that. Lucas requested this, and the meat is cooked soft enough for you to eat. And just because it's a request, you should still consider Lucas's health. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? I'm sorry. Once we started living together, she constantly made snide remarks. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? almost every night. He didn't want to be with us on weekends either, so he started going out, and my mother-in-law feels. If only I hadn't paid the down payment for this house, I wouldn't have to ask my daughter-in-law for money. I bit my tongue and handed her $500 from my wallet. I just gave you $300 the other day, so I can't give you any more this month. Fine. You're so stingy. It's Lucas's money anyway, so don't act all high and mighty. It was frustrating to always give her money, but I was grateful she went out. After quickly finishing the housework, I retreated to my room. Listen to this. That day, Lucas came home early, and the three of us were having dinner together. My mother-in-law spoke to Lucas while gobbling down her food. Brown's son is getting married. Yeah. Lucas gave a half-hearted reply, but my mother-in-law continued, and his fiancée works at a top company. I ran into them today while out with him. She was so polished and spoke so intelligently. I am so jealous. I wish we had a daughter-in-law like that. Even though I was sitting right there, my mother-in-law was being openly spiteful. A woman, huh? Is that what you prefer, Mom? Lucas muttered, Well, Amelia is far from fashionable or professional. Yeah, I guess I usually dressed for practicality. Wearing a suit makes housework difficult. Yeah, I guess. My mother-in-law snorted at Lucas's responses and continued eating in silence. One day my phone rang. It was a call from Williams. Williams is the office lady who has been supporting my father for a long time. The CEO suddenly collapsed. What? I called my mother-in-law, who was out, and rushed to the hospital. In the hospital room, my father was lying in bed with Williams by his side. Dad, you scared me. Thankfully, his life wasn't in danger, but the doctor said his heart was weak. Lately, I've had trouble sleeping. Sorry for worrying you. Really, don't push yourself too hard. You're not young anymore. I was half crying as I scolded him. My father had to stay in the hospital for a while, so I went back home to get his things. After gathering what he needed, I returned to the hospital. I'm sorry it's getting late. You should go home. I know, but I'll stay with him. Amelia, no, I can't ask you to do that. We've known each other for a long time. Don't worry. Okay, then I'll take you up on your offer. Sure, take care. I figured it would be fine since I had already informed my mother-in-law and headed home. Amelia, why isn't dinner ready? As soon as I walked in, my mother-in-law confronted me, and I couldn't help but respond. Huh? I told you I was going to the hospital because my father collapsed. Yes, I heard that, but what were you planning to do about dinner? I felt the most anger toward my mother-in-law that I ever had. At times like this, my mother-in-law could have prepared dinner. Even takeout or eating out would have been fine. I didn't even feel like responding and walked past my mother-in-law into my room. She didn't ask about my father's condition, but was only concerned about their dinner. The thought of divorce crossed my mind due to her inhumanity. Recently, Lucas had also been making condescending remarks toward me, influenced by my mother-in-law. I started questioning whether I should stay in this house. I even got the divorce papers, but couldn't bring myself to say it out loud, and I was struggling with my feelings. I'm home. Lucas came home early for a change, and I went to the entrance. Hey. Next to Lucas was a young woman I had never seen before. Good evening. The woman in the suit greeted me with a smile and then gave me a disdainful look before smirking. She said she had something to talk about, so we went to the living room. My mother-in-law looked surprised at the woman, and at Lucas's urging, she sat down on the sofa. This is Camilla Smith. Well, she's someone I'm seeing. What? Excuse me. I'm sorry, Amelia, here. With eyes shining, my mother-in-law stood up and declared loudly to me, a wife with only a high school education and a single parent isn't suitable for my son. I'm going to have him marry a well-bred mistress, so get out. I was stunned for a moment, but then I smiled slightly. Good. Well then, I pulled out the divorce papers. I had prepared the divorce papers from the drawer. Why do you have those? Lucas asked. Well, whatever, he said, eagerly signing the papers. Oh, and just so you know, since I've been paying off the mortgage, there's no money for property division. Yes, and since this house is in my name, there's nothing I have to give you. Well, I don't really care. Oh, you don't have to say that. Come on, poor people are just like that. While I packed my things upstairs, I occasionally heard the laughter of the three of them downstairs. Each time I heard their laughter, I let out a small laugh myself and packed only the essentials into my suitcase. Before leaving the house, I saw my father-in-law's photo. The only regret I had was that I would no longer be related to him. Thank you for always standing up for me. I'm sorry. From now on, I'll visit your grave. After expressing my gratitude, I left the house late at night with my luggage. I returned to my parents' home and the next day headed to the hospital to see my father. Dad, I got a divorce, so it's okay about what we talked about before. As soon as I entered his private hospital room, I told him, and my father was surprised. What? What happened? I told him about my mother-in-law's treatment of me and Lucas's affair. I see. You went through a lot. I'm sorry I couldn't help. No, I didn't want to worry you. I'm actually relieved to be freed from those people. When I chuckled, my father laughed too. Oh, the nurse said I could use the phone in this private room. My father smiled mischievously as he took out his phone. What are you going to do? Well, it's Saturday, so Lucas is off work, right? I want to thank him. My father put the phone on speaker so I could hear and called Lucas. Hello. It was the day after his wife had left that Lucas received the call. He must have thought he would get scolded, so he answered the phone cautiously. But his father spoke cheerfully right away. Thank you. Now my daughter can take over the company. Apparently, Lucas's mother-in-law was also listening to the call on the other end. Lucas heard her gasp in surprise alongside his own reaction. The truth was, on the day his father collapsed, he asked Lucas to become the next CEO of the company. If I took over the company, I wouldn't be able to take care of things at home, and I was worried about how to explain it to Lucas and my mother-in-law. But now, I don't need to. Instead, my father will explain it to me. Oh, but it's just a construction company, right? Go ahead, take it, Lucas said, and his father and I couldn't help but laugh. Sorry for greeting you over the phone like this, but thank you for taking care of my daughter, his father said in a low voice. But Lucas didn't seem to understand the significance of his words. No problem, he replied lightly and hung up. Raised by such a respectable father, yet he's a disappointing son. Yes, I think so too. His mother's influence was too strong. Poor guy, that will be his downfall. Yes, with me as CEO, a lot of interesting things are going to happen. When I was in high school, his construction company was so small that he couldn't even afford to send me to higher education. However, it's now a large construction company with annual sales of $7 million. My father and I haven't forgotten those difficult times. We don't make unnecessary purchases or dress extravagantly. We think that's important, but Lucas and his mother-in-law are different. We just couldn't get along with them. From there, things moved quickly. Within a month, a shareholders' meeting was held, a resolution was passed at the board of directors meeting, and it was officially decided that I would take over the company. After that, the rounds of greetings to business partners began. At one of the many companies we visited, I greeted CEO Smith, who welcomed us into the reception room with the executives. "Amelia, you've grown up. Long time no see." I greeted him with a smile and then turned to the woman standing behind him. "Camila, wasn't it? It's been a while, huh?" She didn't seem to recognize me in my makeup and suit. "We've met before. I'm Lucas Jones' ex-wife." "What? No way." As I narrowed my eyes and smiled, Lucas's lover opened her eyes wide in shock. Her face turned pale almost comically fast. "What is the meaning of this?" Her father, the CEO, turned to her, unable to speak properly. I explained how I knew her. The CEO's face turned red with anger, and the executives began to murmur. "How could you do this to the daughter of a benefactor?" Hearing those words, I mentally thanked him. He did not disappoint my expectations. "I've told you many times, our company grew thanks to Amelia's father, and now you repay that kindness with betrayal." But I didn't know. I never imagined his wife was the daughter of such a respectable construction company CEO. She didn't look like it. Was it because I was just an over 30 woman with no charm, as you said? No way you could have said something so rude. The CEO was trembling with anger. "I'm so sorry," Camila apologized to me. Then her father said, "My daughter was extremely rude. I'm very sorry." I interrupted his apology and said, "She's an adult now. She's old enough to take responsibility for her actions." Yes, he looked at his daughter. Camila was reprimanded by her father and fired in front of the executive team. After that, Camila apparently separated from Lucas. Lucas still needed to pay for the mortgage on the house. He must have been in quite a bind, but I never imagined he would come to my house. "What? I have nothing to say to you," I said through the intercom. Lucas and his mother desperately brought their faces close to the camera. "Just listen to us for a moment, Amelia."